Greetings, marketeers. Welcome to part 1 of chapter 3, analyzing the marketing environment. Before we get started, I'd like to draw the gentleman's attention in the class to the inset on the left side of your screen. And all I want to say is this is just a life tip. It has nothing to do with chapter 3. But if we were analyzing this get-up with the mandals, the skinny jeans turned up, the bracelet, the handbag, and I'm going to bet that's a V-neck t-shirt. Can't see it, but I bet it is. I just want to tell you, fellas, if you ever think about pulling this out of the closet to put on to head out your day, prepare to have no one take you seriously. That's just a life tip from Dr. Williams. All right, so now that we've analyzed that, let's move along. The takeaway from this chapter is that, you know, good marketers and good business people need to be trend trackers and opportunity seekers and be proactive in it. One thing's for sure, life is change. Everything changes. We change individually, we get older, we enter different life stages, and you have to be attuned to it, and that's the upshot and the takeaway from this chapter. But so this is a definitional slide. The marketing environment, the forces outside marketing that affect what marketers do, even though it may not have a great amount of influence over them. Right? That's the marketing environment. So we're going to talk about the micro environment and the macro environment. So if you think about the micro environment being things that are close, or let's say inside the company, and the macro environment are those that are outside of the company, let's say, and putting pressure or affecting what goes on inside the company. So in the micro environment, we've got the company, of course, everybody that works there, suppliers, our intermediaries, our markets, our customer markets, competitors, and then a phrase that the authors use called publics, which I don't spend much time on because I find it to be confusing, and I won't ask you a publics with a C, not with an X, questions generally, but I left it on the slides. I mean, if you read the text, you'll obviously know what that is. So the macro environment, as I previously said, forces like demographic change, the economy, technology, political decisions and laws that are passed that businesses try to affect with lobbying, and the culture. Culture is a primary force that affects consumers. And if you take consumer behavior with Dr. Littlefield, you'll spend more time on that, but it's very powerful, and we're going to discuss it in brief. So the company, we've got, you know, top management and accounting. These are in no particular order other than top management's at the top. So let's say in a school of business, the accounting majors, you have accounting majors, finance majors, marketing majors, management majors, and other than the early courses you take, the principles of all of those, you know, you might have a lot of interaction with the finance majors if you're a management major later on. Not really what they do, but in the world, everybody, number one, everybody's a part of marketing, right? If the accounting folks are constantly misbilling customers, and customers are upset because they're always having to call in and correct it, then that's going to flow back to the marketing folks and affect that. But in the business, they work together. Think about if research and development is seeking funds from the company to research and develop a new product or an improvement on a product, and the marketing people also are seeking an amount of money because they want to invest in a new, say, social media marketing plan. Well, the finance and accounting people are the ones that are going to hold sway over that. So, you're going to make your pitch to them, and this is the return on investment of ours. And they're going to say, the finance people are going to say, this is the return on investment on our, what we're going to do with the money. And so you can see that they all interact. So it's, even though in a school of business, we're frequently siloed from other disciplines, in the business world, you're not, if it's a good business, because you have to interact with everybody. So you have to take everybody into account. Suppliers. Why suppliers? I think the book mentions IKEA. The authors talk about IKEA relying on 1,000 suppliers in 51 countries to bring their product to market. If you ever look at an airplane or the construction of an airplane, a commercial airplane, they source products from all over the world to build an airplane in Mobile, Alabama, from countries that the United States is friendly with, Europeans are friendly with, or some countries that we're not that friendly with. But we have to. That's where the parts come from. So taking into account these suppliers, they can provide a lot of information to us. They can tell you when something's about to run short, or when they might be involved. They might be having a possible labor issue, or maybe they just got hit with a tsunami. So staying in touch with suppliers is important, and they can give you a lot of information from the ground, because they're also looking at their competitors. They're saying, these are the trends that are coming, and suppliers can be a great source of information. Marketing intermediaries. How does Coca-Cola, for instance, with this picture with this freestyle machine, how does Coca-Cola get a lot of their product to market? Well, Food City sells it, and Kroger sells it, and Quick Trip sells it, and Racetrack sells it. Those are intermediaries that they rely on to sell their products to consumers. And Coke probably sells some syrup directly to Delta and other places, say a baseball stadium. But intermediaries, as the slide says, they help a company to promote it, sell it, and distribute it, get it out there. And that can include resellers that I just talked about, distribution firms. Let's say we have a company in Atlanta, but we'll sell it all over the country, but we need some people we don't have our own fleet of delivery trucks, and so we might need somebody to warehouse bits of our product and warehouses around the country, and then ship it to our end customers, which of course we would pay them for. That's an assist. Ad agencies, marketing services agencies, it calls it. But if you're looking for, Dalton State College has a marketing agency that we use that provides services about what's going on in the education industry. What are other colleges and universities doing with respect to marketing their product? We have a product that we're marketing as well as Coca-Cola does. And then financial intermediaries. Sometimes it's a hard concept to understand, but how does that help marketing? Well, I'll give you an example. I bought a grill last summer from a place, and I forget how much it was. It was whatever, $600. And when I went to buy it, the guy said, "Well, you know, we have a program. It's if you don't want to pay the $600 a day, you can make it over 12 payments, 0% interest." I said, "Well, I'm for that. I'd always rather use somebody else's money than my own." So they set me up with it, but the financing was through a third party, through another company. We'll call it, ABC company. So I paid them whatever it was, $60 a month or something, for 10 or 12 months. I forget how much it was anyway. And that's how I paid for the grill. So I could have paid for it up front, but what if I couldn't have? That would have allowed them to make the sale of the grill. That would allow Weber to sell the grill. And so that's helpful in marketing the product for people that can't afford the upfront cost. So that's helpful to marketing as well. So let's talk about competitors. And you see two pictures of Bayer aspirin. Obviously, they don't compete against themselves. But what a firm is seeking is a sustainable competitive advantage that their competitors it will be hard for them to replicate. Okay? So if you change the price of gas at your place and across the street, the gas station sees you've lowered your price, they lower their price, that's not a sustainable competitive advantage, right? It was a competitive advantage at the moment you lowered the price until they saw it and lowered their price. So we're looking for that kind of advantage to improve the performance of our firms. So this slide mentions positioning. And I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again until you're sick of it. But positioning is a good concept. I want you to leave the course, know what that is. And the position a product has in the minds of the consumers is what's important about this concept. That's product positioning, and we'll have positioning statements and things like that, which I've referenced already in the course. As an example, I have Bayer aspirin up here, which is an example I use a lot because I think it's a perfect one. But aspirin has been around since the Egyptians. And Bayer aspirin's been around ever since I've been alive, and your parents and your grandparents have been alive, and as long as you've been alive. On the left, we have an older version. You can tell because the bottle is glass, and they made Bayer aspirin for people that had hangovers and headaches and body aches and things. And they also made a children's version, which was lower dosage for when you were a little kid and you had the flu or a headache or a toothache or whatever it was. And these particular ones, I used this picture because those were my favorite. They were orange flavored. And my mother used to always say, "Now you can't just chew these up, it's medicine," even though they tasted like candy. And I'm sure they still make those, although I'm not sure. But anyway, they sold them for, pain relief. Well, there was some study, I don't even know that Bayer was involved in it, but they found out several years back that a low dose of aspirin, makes people's blood not so thick, been found to reduce incidences of heart attacks and heart problems. So Bayer repositioned a product that they've had on the market for decades and decades. And you'll notice that the new bottle of Bayer has a little heart symbol, right? And that's 81 milligrams. That's the dosage that they found was helpful, especially for men. I don't know about women. I think probably both, but I know when I turned 40 at my physical, the doctor said, "Hey, start taking an 81 milligram, baby aspirin every day. Just as a preventative. That's what they encourage everybody to do. So you see, Bayer's got this little heart symbol, and they also added aspirin regimen. And you can use this on a program. So they didn't change the name. It's still Bayer. They didn't change the product. It's still 81 milligrams of aspirin. But they positioned it now versus as opposed to a pain reliever, will still do, as a part of a daily regimen for people to reduce the incidence of heart attacks. And the ads that they run are rarely about someone with a toothache. They're always about somebody having a heart attack and they're jamming aspirin in their mouth while they're throwing them in the ambulance or whatever, and how it saved their life and everything. That's a great example of positioning. It's not rebranding because the brand's the same. It's positioning. So I just want to explain that concept, and you can see by positioning aspirin that way, they have created a little bit of advantage over other pain relievers, because they haven't found that ibuprofen or acetaminophen, like Motrin or Tylenol, have the same positive effects on reducing heart attacks or heart ailments. So that gives them a little advantage over other people in that pain reliever market. So customers, we can have different kinds of customers. If Coca-Cola is selling out of a vending machine, they're selling into a consumer market, which means that when we buy one, we consume it generally. We don't buy 20 to go sell at our snack bar. Usually not buying Coca-Cola products out of a freestyle machine to go and resell. That's consumer market. A business market would be if we sold a product to someone and they used it to create another product. So let's say we sold yarn to a carpet manufacturer. They took the yarn and created rugs out of it. That's a business market, different than a consumer market. I have a friend of mine that's the CEO of a piping company, and they mostly, well, not mostly, probably about half their business is to government markets. So they sell piping and piping related equipment to the government whenever they're building, for example, whenever they're building an embassy in another country. They'll say, we need this package of materials from you to make it, and they sell them those packages of materials. Now, here's an interesting story. Whenever the United States government's building an embassy in another country, and they're going to buy from my friend's company, then they palletize up 3 shipments of the same thing at different places, and then at the last minute, the government tells them, okay, ship order number 2 to this country. And they do that so that whatever enemies of the country, of the United States, or maybe not our best friends, know which package is going where, and they can't insert listening devices and things like that in it. And the other 2 packages, they just scrap. They don't use them. That's just to confuse people. I always find that interesting. And then, of course, we've discussed reseller markets, where we're selling it to somebody and they're just selling it again. They're buying it for $1 and selling it to $1 for $1.10. And then international markets. So that can involve all of these. If we're selling to an international market, we could be selling it to them to sell to consumers, to use to make something else. People could be selling it to the government. All of those things. Let's talk about the macro environment. Those things outside that kind of press on the company or affect us, affect the firm inside. Demography, we've discussed that before. That's how big an area is, how dense the population is, age, gender, race, occupation, types of things. I hope that you took advantage of the segmentation tool that I put on D2L, where you could explore your zip code or any zip code in the country, really, and see what kind of people live there, how old they are, whether they have children, what the income is, all those things. If you haven't, go do it because it's interesting and might give you some insight just about where you live and who's living around you. And then we have the demographic environment, involves those things, like I just said, that make up the markets. And then we've got trends. It's important to study demographic trends. Is the population of your county getting older? Is it getting younger? How does that affect our business? Well, if we're in the funeral business, we'd like to be located in a place where the population is getting older, right? Not in a place where the mean age is 80. Won't be much business. What kind of family structures are there? Do grandparents and parents live with the kids? The kids live with them? They not? How many are college educated? How many are not? Is there any, what percentage are white, black, Asian, Latino, Latina, those types of things. So to that end, Pew Research is kind of the driver of, or kind of the originator of creating what are called demographic cohorts. Okay, so this is a down and dirty way to categorize groups of people. And in that segmentation tool, they created some personas of different people, and I'll go back to that. You need to go experiment with that. I think you would enjoy it. But anyway, so you're familiar with a lot of these. Prior to baby boomers, there was a category called the silent generation. Well, that's been dropped off of this chart because there aren't many of them left, I suppose. But so baby boomers were named that because after World War II, the remaining males that were fighting in the war that didn't unfortunately lose their life or anything returned home and got jobs, started going to school, met people, got married, or didn't get married. Anyway, they had kids, and there was a big boom of children born during that age. Now, I am categorized. I was born in 1963, so under this categorization, I am a baby boomer. However, my father was in the military during the Korean conflict, not World War II. He was just a kid in World War II. So, and I'm going to use that later on to point out some of the problems with using this down and dirty, and why we're better off to use generational marketing. But anyway, Generation X, born between 65 and 80. Now, I have more in common with Gen X than I do with baby boomers. In other words, somebody, the baby boomer category would include, somebody that could be 80 years old and me. We have some things in common, but not everything. So we're probably not going to respond to everything the same. And we don't have as many shared experiences as you would think. But Generation X is a lot smaller than the baby boomer generation. They're categorized as being skeptical, and they tend to research products a lot, and they would prefer quality over quantity. Millennials. These are people who came of age around the year 2000. What does come of age mean? Well, it means that they were in their youth around 2000. So now you can see somebody born in 81, right? They'd have been 19 in 2000, and somebody born in 96 would have been 4. However, they did share a lot. They experienced the same events during that time period. And that's our first group of what we call in marketing digital natives. Right? So what's a digital native? That's someone who has always been around, or let me say this, technology has always been around for them, right? I don't remember a time when it didn't exist. And millennials are comfortable with technology, they're connected, they're mobile, and categorized as being impatient. Gen Z, those are tweens and teens with the authors state they influence about 333 billion of family spending. Now, they're an important this is an important cohort for marketers because they're forming brand relationships now. In sports marketing, I talk about the NFL studied when people become interested in an NFL team and become fans, and as early as 8 years old. So brand relationships early in life are important. You know, if you are brand loyal to a mayonnaise brand or a mustard brand or a peanut butter brand because your family always had it in the house, and you know that's what you like, you are very much prone to buy that the rest of life. So it's important to form brand relationships with people early in life. So Gen Z, they're also natives. By the way, the other side of digital native would be a digital immigrant. I'll just put that right here. And those are people like me that did not grow up with, there was not always a PC around. I remember the first PCs that we could use were in college, and it was around 1980 that we got a computer lab that had PCs you could use individually. So anyway, that's the digital immigrant and digital native thing. And you know, the logic behind that is if you're a native English speaker, you grew up speaking English, you can learn another language, but you're never going to use it exactly correctly or comfortably because it's not your first language, right? You can learn another one and use it and be effective with it. It's not the same as the one that you grew up with. And that's that concept, but I won't get too down the weeds on that. And then the latest one is this very large group of Generation Alpha. They'd be about, 7 or 8 years old, in 2020. So by 2025, they will be larger than millennials. They're going to be the most educated, the most technologically supplied, and they're predicted to be the most globally wealthy, probably because of some combination of those things that I just mentioned. So this is one way, one down and dirty way to look at when we're looking about market segmentation and targeting people. We could say, you could say, well, millennials will be more moved by this advertising message than will baby boomers or things like that. But within these cohorts, it doesn't mean that all millennials act the same. It just means that they may react the same because they have these shared experiences and they act, similarly. But we're going to talk about some better ways or some more in-depth ways in addition to these in part 2. All right. So with that said, we will end with the demographic cohort slide, and I will see you on the internet, and make sure to look for chapter 3, part 2.